In September of 2025, the United States Department of Defense released 161 files concerning unidentified anomalous phenomena. The world had been told it would be disclosure. What arrived was not disclosure. What arrived was a French defense report from 1999, FBI memoranda from 1947, astronaut transcripts that had been quoted in academic papers for 50 years, 2 infrared videos labeled benign, and a document about a UFO society in Turkmenistan dated 2004. 79 years of evidence, not one conclusion in the official record. And the institution that has refused to write that conclusion has in 2025 refined the silence into its most elegant form. It was not disclosure, it was procedure. In November of 2004, off the coast of Southern California, 4 United States Navy aviators in 2 FA-18 Super Hornets watched a 40-foot object, white, smooth, with no wings, no rotors, no exhaust, accelerate from a hover to a velocity faster than Mach 3 in less than 1 second. 2 radar systems tracked it, a FLIR camera filmed it. The Department of Defense, after authenticating the footage in 2017, classified the encounter as anomalous and unidentified. That incident was not in the September 2025 release. Anyone can find the archive now. Few do. Fewer still recognize what is not in it. If you stay with me until the static clears, I will show you what the government did not release, and why what they did release confirms it. The release was not an act of confession. It was an act of compliance with a clause buried inside the National Defense Authorization Act of 2024. The institution complied, but only with the letter of the requirement. What was released was not what had been hidden. What was released was what had already passed through every conventional channel: freedom of information requests, declassification cycles, archival accessions. The genuinely classified material was not included. What was included was something stranger. Among the documents in the September 2025 release was a memorandum dated the 22nd of March, 1950, written by Guy Hotel, head of the FBI field office in Washington, D.C., addressed to Director J. Edgar Hoover. It reported, on the authority of an Air Force investigator, that 3 flying saucers had been recovered in New Mexico, circular in shape, approximately 50 feet in diameter, with raised centers. Each disc, the memorandum stated, contained 3 bodies of human shape, but only 3 feet in height, dressed in metallic cloth of a very fine texture, bandaged in a manner resembling the blackout suits of high-speed test pilots. The memorandum closed with a single line. No further evaluation was attempted. The report was filed. The investigation never followed. The memorandum sat in FBI archives for 75 years, until it appeared, intact, in the 2025 release, alongside the infrared videos and the Cometa report and the document about Turkmenistan. There were observers before 2025 who anticipated this exact form of the silence. The first of them was French. On the 16th of July, 1999, a private committee of retired French military officers, defense engineers, and former intelligence analysts published a 90-page report titled UFOs and Defense: What Should We Prepare For? The committee called itself Cometa. Its chairman was General Denis Letty of the French Air Force. Its principal investigator was Jean-Jacques Velasco, the former director of France's official UFO investigation unit, housed inside the French National Space Agency. The Cometa report did what no equivalent American document of the period was willing to do. It reached a conclusion. After 3 years of analysis of 60 years of military, civilian, and radar-confirmed sightings worldwide, the committee concluded that approximately 5% of unexplained cases involved craft demonstrating capabilities beyond known terrestrial technology. Among the cases Cometa cited as central evidence was the Tehran incident of September 1976. An Imperial Iranian Air Force F-4 Phantom scrambled to intercept a brilliant, unidentified object over the capital, experienced complete electrical failure as it closed the distance, including the loss of its weapon systems and instrumentation, only for full function to return the moment the pilot disengaged. The pilot was Major Parviz Jafari. The encounter was confirmed by ground radar, a second F-4, and the Imperial Iranian commander on duty. The report was classified by the United States Defense Intelligence Agency as one of the most credible UFO incidents ever recorded. Cometa also cited the Belgian wave of 1989 and 1990. Hundreds of witnesses across Belgium reported a large triangular craft moving silently over their cities. At one point pursued by 2 Belgian Air Force F-16 fighters, the pilot's radar lock confirmed the object, registered velocities exceeding 1800 km per hour, and tracked accelerations of approximately 40 g, forces no human pilot could have survived. The object was photographed. The Belgian government acknowledged the encounter officially. No identification was ever made. The report did more than reach a conclusion. It named what the United States had been doing, accusing the American government of a coordinated suppression of UFO evidence across multiple agencies, extending back to the 1940s, and then Cometa wrote the 3 words no American document of the period had been permitted to write: the extraterrestrial hypothesis, in a defense document delivered to the Prime Minister of France. A copy of the Cometa report, in English translation, was transmitted to an American researcher named Carol Rosin in April of 2001. Rosin was a long-time disclosure advocate. 2 weeks after she received the document, on the 9th of May, 2001, Dr. Stephen Greer convened the National Press Club for what was called the Disclosure Project press conference. 20 military, intelligence, and government witnesses testified, on camera, to their direct knowledge of the United States government's involvement with unidentified craft. The investigation that Cometa had called for did not follow, and the copy of the Cometa report, the document accusing the American government of suppression, somehow found its way into the official files of the American government, where it sat for 24 years, until it was released to the public in September of 2025, as part of a collection that the government was unwilling to interpret, a foreign report accusing the United States of covering up the phenomenon, archived inside the American collection of documents about the phenomenon. Released, eventually, alongside everything else, without comment. That is the form of the silence. On the 26th of July of 2023, the United States House Oversight Committee convened a hearing titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena: Implications on National Security, Public Safety, and Government Transparency. 3 witnesses appeared under oath. The pattern had become impossible to ignore even inside the institution itself. Ryan Graves was a former United States Navy pilot. He testified that for years, pilots flying carrier-based missions over the Atlantic had observed objects daily: dark cubes encased in translucent spheres, stationary inside Category 4 hurricane winds, exhibiting no thermal signature, no propulsion, no sound. The objects appeared in restricted military airspace. They were tracked on radar. They were filmed on cockpit FLIR systems. They were never identified. Graves testified about one incident in which an object passed within feet of an FA-18's cockpit at hypersonic speed. There was no thermal trail. There was no sonic boom. There was no record in any aircraft register. David Fravor was a retired United States Navy commander, a graduate of the Top Gun Naval Flight School, and the commander of the FA-18 Black Aces squadron aboard the USS Nimitz. He testified about an object he had personally encountered, with 3 other pilots and 2 separate radar systems, off the coast of Southern California in November of 2004, an object that became known publicly as the Tic Tac. On the 14th of November, 2004, the USS Princeton's AN/Spy-1B Aegis radar, the most sophisticated radar system in the United States Navy at that time, had been tracking objects for over a week. The objects appeared at altitudes above 80,000 feet. They descended to 20,000 feet in less than a second. They hovered, then they vanished. No transponders, no exhaust plumes, no identification signals of any kind. Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich were vectored to intercept. Each F/A-18F carried a weapons systems officer in the back seat. 2 aircraft, 4 witnesses. At 20,000 feet, they saw the ocean below them churning, a patch of white water the size of a Boeing 737, with nothing visible on the surface causing it. Above the disturbance, hovering, was a smooth white object, roughly 40 feet in length. No wings, no rotors, no windows, no markings, no exhaust. It looked like a Tic Tac. Fravor descended toward it. The object began to move. As Fravor circled, the object rotated to mirror his aircraft, holding its position relative to him. He attempted to close in. The object accelerated and disappeared from sight in less than a second, a velocity, by Fravor's own description, faster than any aircraft traveling at Mach 3 could achieve. The USS Princeton's radar operator then reported that the object had reappeared at the fighter's pre-planned rendezvous point, a location 60 miles away, in less than a minute. 4 witnesses, 2 radar systems, filmed by the FLIR system of the second wave of FA-18 sent to confirm the sighting, released by the Pentagon in 2017. David Grush was a former intelligence officer of the Department of Defense, the former representative of the National Reconnaissance Office to the Pentagon's UAP task force. He testified that the United States government operated and continued to operate a multi-decade program for the retrieval of crashed craft of non-human origin. He testified that biological material had been recovered from those craft. He testified that individuals who had attempted to come forward with knowledge of the program had been harmed or killed. His testimony was given under oath. The penalty for perjury before Congress is federal imprisonment. He has not been charged. He has not been corrected. He has not been contradicted in writing by any agency named in his testimony. The Department of Defense denied the substance of his allegations. The Department of Defense did not deny that he had made them. 2 years later, in September of 2025, the same Department of Defense released its tranche of 161 files. The files did not contain the program Grush had described. The files did not contain the recoveries he had testified to. A man had testified under oath. A government had released what it claimed was the relevant archive. The two records did not meet anywhere. There is one further document in the 2025 release worth examining, dated 2004. It concerns a UFO society in the former Soviet Republic of Turkmenistan. Read as a UFO file, the document is meaningless. Read as something else, the document is a record of a separate operation entirely. In 2004, the United States was funding non-governmental organizations across the former Soviet Union as civilian channels for activities the host governments would not have authorized. The Orange Revolution in Ukraine occurred that same year. The Rose Revolution in Georgia had occurred the year before. The Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan would follow the year after. The UFO Society in Turkmenistan was one of those channels. The vehicle's nominal subject was incidental. It is not a document about unidentified flying objects. It is a document about how the United States government uses the subject of unidentified flying objects. The institution does not investigate the phenomenon. The institution does not explain the phenomenon. The institution, when convenient, uses the phenomenon as cover for other operations entirely. That document was in the release, without context, without comment, alongside everything else. The two videos released in the 2025 tranche were short. Together, they total under 2 minutes of footage. The first was filmed over Greek airspace on the 9th of January, 2024. The sensor is a forward-looking infrared system mounted on a military aircraft on routine mission. The object enters the frame as a diamond-shaped form with a vertical extension beneath it, solid, structured, moving on a perfectly stable trajectory against the prevailing wind. The aircraft tracks it for nearly a minute. The object does not maneuver. It does not respond. It does not acknowledge the aircraft watching it. At the end of the clip, the vertical extension separates from the diamond. The two components continue independently. The infrared signature does not match any known aircraft, drone, or atmospheric phenomenon catalogued by NATO or the United States Department of Defense. The PDF report attached to the video, filed separately, stored in a different folder of the 2025 release, available only to those who know to look for both, runs 5 pages. The investigation summary occupies 1 line, final assessment, benign. The second video was filmed over the United Arab Emirates in 2024. The sensor is infrared. The object is a luminous sphere with a vertical structure extending beneath it, moving over water at approximately 140 knots, perfectly linear, no evasive action, no engagement with the observing aircraft. The clip lasts 20 seconds. The vertical structure is not a reflection. The trajectory does not match any known aircraft or drone. Final assessment, benign. In the technical vocabulary of intelligence reports, benign does not mean explained. It does not mean identified. It does not mean known. It means the object did not engage hostile action, and that the file is closed without explanation. If we put the pieces together, a pattern emerges that the official record cannot account for. The pattern is not what the documents contain. The pattern is the consistency of the silence across 9 decades, 3 different administrative structures, and 4 progressively sophisticated forms of concealment. In 1948, the silence was destruction. The document was burned. In 1969, the silence was explanation. The object was a reflection on the window. In 1999, the silence was foreign. The conclusion the institution could not afford to write was written by men in another country and then quietly archived inside the institution itself. In 2025, the silence took its final form. The documents were released. The conclusion was withheld. The reader was given the file and refused the interpretation. I want to ask you something before this video closes, not about the documents, not about the agencies, not about the videos labeled benign. I want to ask you about yourself. When an institution releases an archive it has hidden for 80 years and offers no analysis of what the archive contains, what have you been trained to call that? Transparency. The word the institution uses for itself. The word your news channels repeat when they report that the files were released. The word you have been conditioned to associate with honesty, but transparency requires interpretation. A pile of documents without commentary is not transparency. It is the appearance of transparency, designed, calibrated, and delivered by the same institution that spent 80 years deciding what you would be permitted to know. Ask yourself how many other institutions in your life operate by the same protocol. Release the documents. Refuse the interpretation. Let the public believe they have been told the truth, because they have been given access to what the institution permits them to see. And then ask yourself the harder question. What does it know that it has decided you will never be permitted to know? Even after the files have been released, even after the witnesses have testified under oath, even after 80 years, I think about the FBI clerk in 1947, logging a sighting with no jurisdiction, passing the file along the system. I think about James McDivitt in 1965, photographing an object NASA would call a reflection. I think about General Dennis Letty in 1999, signing his name to a conclusion the United States would not permit one of its own institutions to write. I think about David Grush in 2023, sitting at a congressional witness table under oath, naming what he had been told by colleagues he could not name, and being denied the access that would have allowed him to confirm what he had been told. Benign. In the Chronicles of the Void, the most patient silences are the ones that hide inside released documents, and the American silence has, in 2025, taken the most elegant form it has ever taken. The next form will be quieter still. If what I have shown you has unsettled you, there is another archive I opened before this one. 6 American spacecraft, 3 astronauts on the way to the moon, looking through a monocular at an object NASA would later call a piece of their own ship, in a position no piece of their own ship could occupy. That window is open, on the screen now. The static does not end here. What survives of the 2025 release, the 161 files, the Cometa report, the Disclosure Project testimony from 2001, the congressional hearing transcripts from 2023, the infrared videos and their separately filed assessments, waits in the description below. Not because you need it, because some of you will want to read what the institution released, when the institution refused to interpret what it had released. The watchers of Project Sign worked in offices, the astronauts worked in vacuum. The next watchers work in front of declassified files, and the silence, even now, has not been broken.